Good day, learners. Welcome to class. Welcome to biology with Omotayo. Nice having you on board again. Thank you for always holding on and for your presence. Yes, indeed, we owe you lots of appreciation. Please endeavor to always like the videos, endeavor to share, and always make effort to encourage all those you bring on board to equally subscribe, just as you have. Subscription is free. So now to today's content. Last class we were able to look at phylum Echinodermata and phylum Chordata, as well as phylum Arthropoda. We exhausted all required with regards to phylum Arthropoda, with regards to phylum Echinodermata, and then we took introduction to phylum Chordata. And under phylum Chordata, we looked at the subphylum, 3 subphylum under phylum Chordata: the Cephalochordata, the Urochordata, and then the Vertebrata. It comes in that order. Okay, the Cephalochordata, the Urochordata, and the Vertebrata. Our area of interest with regards to our curriculum content when it comes to our exam, the NECO, the WAEC, the UTME, other medical exams, and biological based exam, is basically the subphylum Vertebrata. And last class as well, under this very subphylum Vertebrata, we established that the subphylum can be split into 2 divisions. The first division, the Agnata, where you have jawless organism, and then the Gnatostomata, where you have the jawed organisms with jaw. Now, it is under this Gnatostomata that we'll be focusing on, because that is where our curriculum is focused on. Under the organisms with jaw, Gnatostomata, we have the following groups of organisms: Physis with fin, then Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves, and Mammalia as tetrapods. You can see the charts if you check out the previous class recording. Okay, so you will see the charts there. So our area of emphasis, the Gnatostomata, have the Physis, that's organism with fins, then the tetrapods, that is your Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves, and Mammalia. This will be our area of focus in the course of this study. However, before we begin to pick each of this group, that is from Physis, and start examining them, as well as their basic features and unique characteristics, as well as examples, we'll quickly take general characteristics of organisms that are grouped under the subphylum Vertebrata. That is to say, general characteristics of vertebrates, either it be Physis, Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves, or Mammalia. What and what do they really have in common? 1. As it has been established much earlier, for an organism to be under Vertebrata, it had been established much earlier that such organisms have what? A spinal cord. Started as a notochord during developmental stage and further got differentiated into a spinal cord at advanced stage. That have been earlier established. Added to this is the fact that organisms under Vertebrata, they have well-developed central nervous system. Okay, well-developed central nervous system. What we simply do abbreviate as what? CNS. Also, they have 2 pair of limbs. Okay, they have 2 pairs of limbs. That is to say, a pair of forelimb and a pair of hind limb. A pair of forelimb and a pair of the hind limb. Also, organisms here have kidney being used as an organ of eliminating waste. That's organ of excretion. Okay, kidney as organ of eliminating metabolic waste. Remember, it can never be said to be excretion if it is not a metabolic byproduct. Okay, take note. So, kidney as organ of excreting or eliminating metabolic waste. Also, they have well-developed internal organs. well developed and well differentiated internal organ. Also, presence of internal and external skeleton. Okay, other character of organisms under this very subphylum is that they are bilaterally symmetrical. Bilaterally symmetrical with distinct head, trunk, and tail. With distinct head, trunk, and tail. Okay, also here the circulatory system is closed. Okay, a closed circulatory system, and then they do possess a skin. They possess a skin, and this skin is usually either naked or may have coverings like scale, feathers, or hair. Skin. The skin may be naked or with covering. Okay, so these are unique features that are peculiar with every member under the subphylum Vertebrata. Okay, from here we will now start picking on each of the classes and start looking at unique characters. Unique characters of physis will be examined. Unique character of the amphibians will be examined. Then the reptilia, the aves, and the mammalia. Come along with me as we pick these one after the other. And so, just as discussed, now we'll be looking at the various classes under the jawed organisms, the organism with jaw that are under our subphylum Vertebrata. You know, from earlier we established we have the physis with fin, we have the amphibia, the reptilia, the aves, and then mammalia, all under the tetrapods. Altogether, these five, physis, amphibia, reptilia, aves, and mammalia, are what we'll be looking at. So we'll be picking on the first class, that is the class physis. Okay, we'll be looking at the first class, the class physis, that is they are with fins. Now, under organisms here for class physis, before we start looking at key examples, we'll look at the subdivision. This very class equally has two subdivisions. We have A, the Osteichthyes, and the Chondrichthyes. The Osteichthyes, okay, the Osteichthyes contains the bony fishes, and then the Chondrichthyes contains the cartilaginous fishes. So whichever, either Osteichthyes or Chondrichthyes, they all have unique characteristics. Yes, so we'll be looking at general characteristics of organisms that are grouped under the class physis. General characteristics of organisms grouped under the class physis. And before we take even the general characteristics, we can as well identify a few examples with regards to these two groups. Like for our bony fish, we have examples like the tilapia, the salmon, the mackerel, among others. And therefore, like our cartilaginous fishes, we have like the ray, yes, the ray, or even the shark. Most times, students will always think that the shark should be under the bony. However, the shark is under the cartilaginous. Now, having known the examples here, then let's look at the unique character or general character of organisms that are under this class together. Okay, so general characteristics of organisms under this class will now be looked at together. They are a group of organisms that are basically referred to as fishes, and they have good adaptation for aquatic life. Okay, so organisms here are adapted towards aquatic life. Here, organisms have body covered with or without scale. The scale usually serve the purpose of protection. in aquatic organisms. Also, they possess fins for movement. Either the dorsal fin, the anal fin, the caudal fin, or the pectoral fin with regards to each of their purposes. All in all, they serve the purpose of movement, either to pivot or to turn or to propel, as the case may be. All is for movement. Remember, I said again, either the dorsal, the pectoral, the anal, or the caudal fin, as the case may be. It's all to aid movement in this aquatic organism. They use gill for gaseous exchange. Okay, gill is used for gaseous exchange, and usually they are said to be what? Poikilothermic. Okay, poikilothermic. What do we mean? Usually, it is said that poikilothermic means cold-blooded animals, but that does not do good justice to the meaning. But permit me to write it there. Yes, permit me to write it there, since it is a common used term to explain poikilothermic. But actually, poikilothermic simply make reference to organisms that have body temperature fluctuating with the environmental temperature. That is to say, the body temperature fluctuates based on what is prevailing in the environment. It is not stable, unlike what will be seen later in the course of our study, where we have other forms of organisms with a kind of body temperature that does not fluctuate with environmental temperature. So take note, for our class phyces, they are referred to as poikilothermic, that is, in quote, cold-blooded, where body temperature fluctuates with what? Environment. Also, they have swim bladder for buoyancy. They have swim bladder for buoyancy. We have lateral line, which is for sensation. Okay, organisms here have lateral line, which is for sensation. Also, organisms here have streamlined body, which enables easy movement in water. And then, with regards to reproduction, usually reproduction is sexual. Reproduction is sexual. Yes, whichever way, even though the external fertilization is more prominent, but whichever way, reproduction is what? Sexual. And here, organisms do lay egg. And because of this, they are referred to as oviparous. Okay, here organisms lay egg, and so they are referred to as oviparous. Later in the course of our study, you will come to know what other terms are used with regards to other organisms that don't lay egg. Is either oviparous for laying egg, viviparous for those not laying egg, and so on and so forth. We'll meet to use those other terms in the course of our study. And so with this, we've been able to summarily identify general features associated with class phyces. And so we'll move on to the next class, and you can preempt. Yes, what class is that? Immediately after phyces, we are moving on to what? Class amphibia. By the way, phyces, water; amphibia, water and land; reptilia, land; apes, land and air; mammalia, either anywhere, either land, air, or water. As it gets more complex, it has adaptation for various habitats where it can survive. And so we are done with that which is adapted for water. We'll be moving on to that which is adapted for life on water, or life in water, and life on land, that is amphibia. Come along with me. Okay, now for class amphibia, this is the first class of vertebrata that is adapted to life both in water and partly on land. Okay, the first set of vertebrata to be adapted to life partly on land. Yes, and we have a couple of organisms under this very class. Organisms like toad, organisms like frog, organisms like salamander, organisms like newts. Okay, like toad, like toad, like frog, like salamander, and then newts. Now, these are a couple of examples of organisms that have been able to adapt to life in water and then partly on land. Now, what are unique characters peculiar to organisms under this very class? Well, one, poikilothermic. These have been explained today. Next, they have two pairs of limbs. That is the forelimb and the hind limb. Unlike the earlier discussed class, physis, where rather we were talking about fins, dorsal, caudal, pectoral, anal, and so on. Here rather we are talking about limbs, forelimbs and hind limb. Usually aids movement either by hopping, by swimming since it is webbed, or even sometimes to take a little walk. They have naked, moist, glandular skin. That is another unique example of organisms here. Okay, they have naked, moist, glandular skin, and this enables even what is referred to as cutaneous respiration. Because of the moist skin, highly vascularized, then it is sometimes being used for gaseous exchange as well, so as to enable quick energy generation. They exhibit adult life that can live both in water and land. This has been long established, adult life that can live both in water and land. Next, we equally have actual gaseous exchange being carried out using differentiated organs. Yes, they have differentiated organs for gaseous exchange. I said earlier that sometimes even the skin can be used. However, in particular, at the tadpole stage, like for example, in our frogs, what is being used is referred to as gills, while at adult stage, what is being used is referred to as the lungs. The differentiated organ for tadpole stage for respiration is the gill. However, the differentiated organ for respiration at adult stage is the lungs. That is not all. I said it earlier that the skin can also be used because it is glandular, it is vascularized, well enriched with capillaries, it is moist, and so diffusion can be embraced. Okay, and that is not all. Still, at other times, even the mouth can be used. This is referred to as buccal respiration, just as the skin is referred to as cutaneous respiration. Okay, that is not all with regards to organisms here. Earlier, I made mention of movement. They have majority have webbed foot. Yes, majority have webbed foot. This aids ability to easily move in water. Majority have webbed foot. They are equally oviparous and carry out external fertilization. Okay, earlier I have shed light on the meaning of the word oviparous. It simply means organisms that lay egg in efforts to give rise to their young ones. Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of our class, Amphibia, and this is where we will be pausing today. Thank you for joining class today. Thank you for tarrying this long. Thank you for always coming along. Please endeavor to keep to time. Also, with regards to next class, looking forward to see you. Thank you for always being a good supporter of the channel. Biology with Omotayo. Don't forget to share, don't forget to like, and always encourage every one of them as well to subscribe to the channel. See you next class. Keep learning. Take care. From the intricate working of the cells to classification of living things, from the mechanism